we need to replace one of our jails. The Hall of Justice at 850 Bryant is going to be demolished. And the conditions in the Hall of Justice are the two jails, jails 3 and 4, are deplorable. I mean, they're just deplorable. They should have been demolished ages ago. It's an old linear style jail where the Johnny Cash song, Walk the Line, that's what you do, you walk the line, because there's cells on both sides where people are kind of sardined into those areas. Because of how condensed and compact that is, and the way people are sardined, we can't get any programming in there. And a decision years ago was decided to demolish the Hall of Justice, which is going to happen, and there had been a decision to rebuild a larger jail. When I came in office as sheriff, I sent a message that I understand the replacement is needed, but not that size. And so we'll scale it down. And I still have to defend the proposition that we do need a replacement jail, but the purpose of the jail is not to recreate this linear sort of model, but try to model it after what is the facility in San Bruno, and that is that you make it more of a programmatic facility. And do it so that we're able to make good use of the inmates' time so that rehabilitation is a daily part of their experience with the Sheriff's Department. And still, the deduction by some is your jail population is low. This is San Francisco. Do we really need another jail? And that's a very valid question, I think. But because of how important that we have rehabilitation programming, why some populations are getting more specialized, like those who are mentally ill, who are now finding themselves in the jail system, we need the room and we need to apply the staff attention in a way that really supports the idea that we need a replacement facility. But we'll be the first county in years in the state of California, and we'll be the only county that's actually reducing our jail space by 30%. So that's another message that even amid what sounds kind of funny that you got a sheriff of this political bent that's saying, hey, we need a replacement jail, and everything's, oh my God, you're expanding, which is the opposite. We're actually reducing, because it's a 903-bed facility, cells, over the Hall of Justice. I'm suggesting we bring it down to maybe about 580, 600.
Nice. Wow. Made a few days ago, it was on the Drug Policy Alliance's website, in regard to the fact that the war on drugs was a failure, acknowledging that. Yeah, I know.
It's very unusual for you.
Very,
yeah.
But
that's why I'm thinking there might have to be a real announcement for some substance.
We'll see.
Again, it's that.
I don't know.
It's the liberal rhetoric that, you know, you got to watch it, you got to decode it, because they'll say the right stuff. And then when it comes to the facilitating of what those statements mean, you know.
Well, they all want to point the fingers, and there's a funny story. I was at the Hayes Street Grill with parents one day, having lunch, and this is a few months ago, and a woman got up sitting next to us with, you know, her male companion, and she reached over and said, oh, you're Terrence Hallinan, it's nice to meet you, I'm Attorney General Melinda Haig. And I sat back and I almost fell out of my chair. Terrence didn't realize who it was at first. He goes, oh, you're so, you know, and he's like enamored by her. Oh no! And I'm going, oh my God, do I say something? And I had to say something. And I said, so, you know, he introduced me, and I said, I just have one question. You know, what's up with your attack on cannabis? And her face got red. She's like, I am so tired of being asked this question. I want you people to call your elected officials, because it's not coming from me. Call Nancy Pelosi, call your senator. I'm tired of hearing it. So that was her response. It was a funny, you know, I said, parents were like hitting on Melinda Haig. It was a good story at the office, but right. Anyway, yeah. So
there is a freedom of information.
Call your elected official. That was her response.
No, it's interesting. There is a Freedom of Information Act statement that came out that she has had communication with state officials.
So
well, we hear from her all the time.
I sort of put her actually.
Yeah, no, we hear from her all in the convening of the sheriffs that come together few times a year, actually, several times a year. I've been in the same room. They come, all the national leaders and state leaders, they come in and they speak with us. The California Sheriff's Association is actually a very powerful association, and it's I'm the newbie. I'm the compared to a lot of these long-serving, I'm the kind of the rookie guy there. So I listen a lot and try, you know, judiciously, selectively to offer my 2 cents. And sometimes it's not popular, but and I try to dismiss it as being kind of a San Francisco thing. It's like, oh, that's a San Francisco. I says, no. And I think by trends that are occurring in even less, you know, well-known or liberally known areas who are beginning to affirm some of the things that we talk about, that might be the reaction, but privately some of those sheriffs come up to me and says, we think you're right. So I think they themselves have to deal with their own constituencies that, you know, help really sustain what I think are dated opinions. And that's why this level of education needs to really be made a responsibility for all electeds and for community to insist upon it, but the feds to show some backbone in driving what change needs to happen. So I hope Eric Holder and the Obama administration, more than just recognizing the problem or admitting, you know, what isn't working, that are following through with some real policy craft that gives state and local governments something to sink their teeth into.
You're starting to see, I'm hearing that you're starting to see some of the fear level from other law enforcement officials coming down. That's kind of what I'm hearing between the lines. When do you see state legislatures or federal legislatures meeting and reevaluating the whole book of law? Because until that book of law is changed, even the DA, unfortunately, is held by trying to uphold the law. And I'm seeing this as just being so blocked in the Senate and the other legalization.
Well, you know, we have legislators like Assemblymember Amiano and Leno, Senator Leno, and a spattering of others in the state that I think have attempted, at least in California state legislature, to, you know, push the issue in a direction we would all support. But I feel like they're still isolated in some ways, and that the movement hasn't gelled enough to give more of a tour de force behind their efforts and gestures in Sacramento. I don't agree that district attorneys or law enforcement officials are handcuffed, our hands are tied. They have the bully pulpit. Terrence Hallinan as DA had the bully pulpit and became the DA when he, you know, for 2 administrations, 2 election cycles as DA, was able to use that, I think, in an effective way in California and nationally to remind people that they didn't want a criminal justice system or a prosecutorial system that discriminated or disproportionately would continue to weigh in on small offenses in the way that it traditionally had been. And I think that that got picked up on quite a bit around the state and nationally to help give rise to larger reasons as why there's so many Prosecute 15 states. You know, it's a growing movement in this country.
It's unusual who's aligned with the senator.
Well, there's really different reasons and different motivations, and you know, in some of these new clubs that I think Shona was referencing before, and sort of the landscape that's changing, there's also different motives now for why people are getting into the business. I think the philosophy that started way back in the response to the AIDS and HIV crisis and catastrophic illnesses, to have medical marijuana was one built on a not-for-profit philosophy. And it was an ethos that I think that was trying to be legislated so that there wouldn't be a deviation from that. You know, I think there have been others who have kind of ruined that or tried to sour that has given rise, you know, to a concern and an opportunity for federal government and others to kind of come in and say, hey, you know, you're all sort of bad apples, when that isn't the truth.
Absolutely.
I've seen failed efforts where, say, except for the police, say in St. Carlos, in order to save their force from the sheriffs being taken over by the deputy sheriff, which they ended up contracting to, was looking at like warehouse space where it was basically distributed free, which doesn't really make sense, you know, but that was the way that they were going to look at it. And there needs to be a middle ground there. I agree.
And it's only going to be propelled, there has to be that tipping point. There have been, as political history shows us, there are tipping points where people just kind of, push and the flow comes. And I think we're all sort of looking or trying to feel where that point might be as it has reared its head before in the past with regard to this question of decriminalization, with question of access. So I think we're looking for that new juncture to make it happen. And again, my message back is organizing around this issue, municipally, reconnecting with others, and reminding people why it's an important issue in the landscape of politics and democracy, as other states are beginning to show us as well, makes, I think, for an important agenda. Well, I will end here. I hope I didn't over-talk too much. And thank you.